My name's Joel. I'm the teaching pastor here at the Gathering, and we're just so grateful that you've given us some of your Sunday, some of your weekend. Hope that you're encouraged so far. Hopefully I won't ruin that in the next half hour. You're coming in the third week of a series that we're calling Renegade, which is kind of a tagline, a way that we describe ourselves around here. And we wanted to take a look through a series of what that really means for us individually and what it means for us corporately as a church. And so that's kind of where we've been. And we're using the story of the prodigal son, which is Jesus' longest parable found in the New Testament, found in the book of Luke, as he lays this story out relating to the son who, in selfishness, disobedience, disrespect towards his father, claimed his inheritance and ran off and spent it, leaving himself on the verge of death. And it's been a tough kind of series to work on because we're working with a very short part of Scripture. And when you pull that apart, each week I'm looking at 2 or 3 or 4 verses. And the last 2 weeks we've looked at really hard stuff. And it hadn't been a whole lot of fun. There's a lot of weeks where I get home, I'm like, oh, I just got to get through this one so I can get to this week. And that's kind of how I feel about this message. Because we are looking at it simply from the perspective of the Son. We've been looking at it as we are the Son. And we're only looking at this parable kind of from one direction. And that's not always that helpful for us. Most of the time it's not. When we see things just one way, we have to see the full context of what's really happening. A few years ago, I was 7, 8, 9. I can't remember exactly when it was. I'm the youngest of 3 children. I'm the only boy. I have an older sister who's 8 years older than me. So I was 8 or so. She was 16, maybe almost 17, kind of when this went down. And there was some point in her life where she stopped sleeping in her bedroom. I don't know why this was. It's just that some way she just determined she was going to sleep on the couch every night. It was like a homeless person moved into our house and was just sleeping on the couch, just kind of squatting in our living room. But that's what she did. I don't know why, but that's just how she did it. How she went to bed every night. And so one night, normal night, just she got her covers out and was going down to the couch. I was told to go to bed because I was pretty young. My bedroom was upstairs, right down the hall from my parents, across the hall from my other sister, our middle sister. My oldest sister was downstairs on the couch. About 1 or 2 in the morning, you heard this scream, blood-curdling, terror-filled scream. You heard do-do-do-do-do, this running all the way up the steps. I hear her barge into my parents' room, wakes us all up, and I hear her sobbing. And so, of course, I'm awake. I want to know what's going on. I go down to my parents' room, and there they are consoling my oldest sister, who is just weeping, broken, completely terrified. And it took a long time to calm her down to even get words out. And she said, I was downstairs on the couch trying to go to sleep, and somebody broke in and was staring at me from the kitchen, which was just down the hall. So she was laying on this couch looking in the hall, and she said, he was in our kitchen watching me. And she said, I've been staring at him for an hour, waiting for him to attack me, trying to formulate a plan of what I'm going to do if he charges me, or how do I get it? Do I scream? Will he attack me if I scream? Do I make a break for it? Is he going to be able to grab me? Because he had strategically set himself up in our kitchen at the corner between our kitchen and the stairway leading upstairs to my parents' room in what she thought was safety. She's like, I don't know if I can run fast enough and get to the stairwell. Is he going to grab me? She said, I've been staring at him for hours, waiting for him to do something, wondering, do I make a break? How do I get out of this? She said, I'm down there starting to cry and get all worked up. And so she said, finally, I took a deep breath. I counted to 10, and she barged off the couch and sprinted down the hallway, barely missed him, made it up the steps to my parents' room, and we're like, whoa, where is he now? Is he going to kill us? Is he still in the house? And she said, I made the break for it. I was like, I got to get to mom and dad's room. They're going to help me. And she said, and I turned and I realized it was a pineapple. My mom had put a pineapple at the end of the counter in our kitchen. And in the shadows, in the middle of the night, from the angle that my sister was looking, just the one way she could see it, it looked like a crazy man with crazy hair and spiky face had snuck into the house and was going to kill her. In the shadows, from her perspective, that one direction, she only saw one thing. A man with really weird hair who was going to come and get her. We can't look at the parable of the prodigal son just from one perspective. We can't just simply look at it from him, because that's not the full context, is it? There's more going on. And it's been hard even to look at it these last 2 weeks in this series, because we have had to look at his story and realize it's very much our story. That's what I've said over and over again. His story is our story. Some details may be changed, but all of us at our core rebel against the Father. All of us at our core are renegades, going out on our own, wanting to do it our way, thinking we've got it all figured out. And so as we see the consequences start to come down on him, we are filled with pain as we hear the story. We're filled with embarrassment as we hear the story. We're filled with regret as we hear the story. And honestly, I don't always want to make every message about my failures or your failures. I don't want to make you relive that. I don't want to relive it all over, but it's there. My past is my past, and it's the only story I've got. But know this, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, no matter what regret or pain you're feeling, even this very moment, it's your story for a reason. And that story is going to swing. It's about to switch. And that's what we're going to look at today. We can't simply read the story of the prodigal son simply from his perspective. Because today the story goes from renegade son to renegade father. It swings rapidly, and it has to. It always has to. Because God must show up. God must speak up. And he wants nothing more for you, for me, for all of us than to make you his type of renegade. And he models that in his story. He models that in this story now. Jesus swings the story because God has shown him how a father acts towards a rebellious child. But more importantly, Jesus swings the story and points it towards God here, because your story, my story, all of our stories, the prodigal son's story is ultimately, truly, fully God's story. It always has been. And we must see that fullness of what's going on here, of how God longs for you, how he feels lost when you're not there, how he loves you. And this all flows out of his compassion. It all flows from his compassion towards you, towards me. No matter where we are, no matter what we've done, no matter the mistakes that we are facing consequences for. The story of the prodigal son swings rapidly because of God's compassion. If you have your Bible, we're going to go to the book of Luke, chapter 15. And we're going to look at it from a whole different perspective today. We're going to move away from just simply seeing it as the son. We need to see how the father reacts in this, because there is a renegade father who's at work here. Luke chapter 15. And what I want us to see first is this compassion. That the father felt compassion towards his son. Luke 15, go down to verse 20. We're going to spend some time looking at these next 4 verses in the parable of the prodigal son, or the parable of the renegade son, as we've taken to calling it. And it says this in verse 20. And he, this is the son still, so the son arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. The father felt compassion. If it's not underlined in your Bible, if it's not highlighted on your tablet or your smartphone, if you got a pen with you and you got it in your worship guide, you need to circle that. You need to underline. You need to put stars next to it. The father felt compassion. Note it doesn't say the father felt frustration, disappointment, anger. It shows that the father is way better father than I'll ever be. Because I'll be the father sitting on the front porch with my arms folded, tapping my foot, filled with anger because they're coming back. I just got rid of you, fool. I I get all the golden grams for myself now. Why are you coming back? How dare you get your inheritance and run away and squander it? The mess you're in is your mess. You're on your own. That's the kind of father I would be. It doesn't say it about this father here. The father felt compassion when he saw his son. He felt compassion. The parable could end right here, and honestly, it would be perfect. It could end right here and be absolutely perfect because the father felt compassion. Renegades need compassion. The Greek word, the New Testament was written in Greek in the original language. It was the common language of the time. So when people saw the book of Luke and read it, they most likely were reading it or having it read to them in Greek. And the word compassion here in the original language is spagnoliamai. Spagnoliamai. And it means to feel compassion, or he was being compassionate. But the thing about studying Greek and reading the text in Greek, which they put you through that pain when you go to college and seminary and you want to be a pastor, you got to do that. There's a deeper meaning to it. It doesn't just mean compassion. It's connected to more things that are going on. This same word, spaglosiomai, is used in Luke chapter 7, verse 13. Where a widow comes to Jesus and says, my son, my only son, has died. And it says that Jesus looked upon her, looked at her state, looked at her situation, looked at her case, and felt spagnoliamai, or compassion. He feels it towards this widow who's hurting, whose only child, the only person that could protect her, take care of her, was now dead. Jesus felt that compassion at his very core, in his heart. At her situation, of what was going on, at her pain, he felt that compassion. Jesus feels compassion towards homes that are incomplete because his Father, God, our Father, feels compassion towards homes that are incomplete. His Father, our Father, God, feels compassion when his home, his kingdom, his church is incomplete. God had modeled this for Jesus. So when Jesus gave this parable, he uses this specific word of compassion, just like he felt it, to show that this family is incomplete without you. And if you're a renegade and rebelling against God's love, rebelling against God's goodness for your life, you're fleeing from that, running from that, turning your back to it, he feels compassion for you because he wants you to come home. Remember, our choices will kill us. This son's choices were killing him. He was living in the wreckage and the consequences. It had already killed him. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, financially. He was destroyed. He had blown it all in a foreign land, and we learned last week was living in a pig pen. Sold himself out as a slave to feed pigs and didn't have any food even with all the work he was putting in. He had nothing. He was dead, as good as dead. Our choices have killed us. They are killing us. They will kill us. Yet the Father looks at your situation with compassion. And notice that it says the Father felt compassion. He didn't just show compassion. When we're in our worst state, when we are in the wreckage and pain of our life, we don't just need somebody to show us compassion. We want somebody who feels pain, hurts, loss because of where we're at. The Father felt compassion. No one just needs a sign of compassion. They want somebody who feels it, that is heartbroken because we're heartbroken. The Father didn't simply show it, he felt it. When we're in the wreckage of our lives, when we're in the midst of our selfishness, we're in the midst of our sin, we don't often see that or know that or feel that ourselves. But the Father feels it towards you. We have to do what this son did. We have to turn home to know this. We have to turn home to realize there's a Father who is hurting for you, for me, for us. Then we'll see when we turn home that he's waiting, just like this father was, that God is waiting for every single renegade. But notice that's not just it in the verse. It could end there. It could be perfect. But Jesus takes the story to a place that is far greater than we ever imagine or deserve. It says that not only did the Father feel compassion, what does he do? He runs to the Son. He embraces the Son. He kisses the Son. The Father's compassion overflows in such a way that he makes a break for it. He sprints towards his Son. Know this Father in this story had to have been powerful and wealthy. So much so that the Son got his inheritance before the Father even died. The Father could afford that and is still able to operate his household, his small kingdom, because in a little bit we're going to see that he's talking to his servants, that he has another son who's in the fields working. So there's still life going on in his home, and he had wealth and power and privilege. People came to him for favor. People came to him for loans. People came to him for mercy. So he would have been okay to be able to sit on the porch and say to his son, I told you so. But he doesn't. He puts his pride to the side. He throws his ego away. And when he sees his son turning for home, what does he do? He runs to him. He embraces him. He kisses him. And we see something here, that when we turn for home and the Father runs to us, we don't just get to see compassion, we get to feel it too. And we get to realize that he has felt it for us all along. It shows us something very important. God will always sprint to you. He'll always run to you. No matter how far you've gone, he will always run to you. And you're like, I don't know if I see that today. You know why? You're facing the wrong way. You've been walking away from him for far too long. You don't know the compassion he has for you because you're not even turned to him. Turn and return home and realize that he's waiting, filled with compassion, hurting for you because you're hurting, and now running to you to bring you in, to embrace you. But it shows us something else at the level of who we are as the gathering, who we are as a church. We will be a church that sprints to people who are hurting. We will run to those who are in need, run to those who are in pain. And it's not always easy when somebody's marriage is falling apart, or a loved one's died, or they've grown sick, or their finances have caught up to them. They're in pain, they're in absolute crisis. And the thing that always comes to us is, I don't know what to say. Welcome to the club. They don't need to hear what you have to say. They need to see you filled with compassion, running to them. And when we do, we model something far greater than having the right words at the right moment. We model a Father who does that when we're hurting and is doing it for them. We show them that God has showed such compassion towards us that we're going to run into their pain. We're going to run to their needs. We're going to be a church that does that. And if we haven't been for you yet, you let me know. Because we want to run to wherever you are and let you know there's a God who is running as well, who is feeling compassion towards you. In fact, he's going to out-sprint us every single time. But doggone it, as a church, we're going to get right behind him and run along too, going to those who are hurting, those who are in need. God always sprints to you because of the compassion he feels for you. But that's not all this Father does. The Father doesn't just feel compassion. The Father cuts the Son off. He cuts the Son off. Let's pick up in verse 21 and see what he does here. And the Son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the Father said to the servants. This isn't just a transitional statement here, okay? It's not getting to something more, even though great things are coming for the Son and great things are coming for you. But the Son has his prepared speech. We talked about that last week. He's in his absolute wreckage, and he starts to come up with a plan. I'm going to return home, and I'm going to give this plea to my Father. I've sinned against heaven. I've sinned against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Hire me as a servant, so I'll finally have something to eat. He has this big plan, right? What does the father do with this? This son's been practicing it from the foreign land he went to, from the pig pen he was living in, all the way down the road, all the way into his father's land and territory, just practicing it all over again. I've sinned against heaven, I've sinned against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Should I say it that way? How should my face be? He's working that through in his mind. Should I emphasize it here? Should I bring my voice down a little bit to sound really sad? He's practicing all the way home. What does the father do with this? The father looks to his servants and says something. The father cuts him off, not in the way that he should be cut off, because the son deserves nothing because of his selfishness, because of the disrespect he's shown to his family. The father should cut him off, but he doesn't. He turns to the servants and he says something. He cuts the son off because the son's plans, the son's pleas were the end of his part of the story. The father's going to take over. And I'd never noticed it. And all the times I've read Luke 15, all the times I've read the parable of the prodigal son, it was this week that I realized this whole story has been going on and the father has never spoken up. Read it again this week. That's your homework. Read the prodigal son one more time. Read this parable one more time before we wrap this series up next week. Read through it and realize the dad's never spoken. Never said anything to the son, at least that's written down. When the son says, give me my inheritance because you're as good as dead to me. I don't need you anymore. Give me my money. Never says anything while the son's gone. The first time he speaks is cutting his son off. Isn't that amazing? He never says anything until right now because the father is going to take over the story. God is taking over the story. This is his story, not the story of the prodigal son, not the story of you and me. This is God's story. Your story is God's story, and his plan for you always wins. He puts out his plan while the son's like, I got my plan, I got my plea, I've got it all together. But remember, the son's plan here is filled with guilt. And guilt will always fall short. No matter how ashamed you are of where you've been, no matter how guilty you feel and you know you need to change, our plans are always filled with guilt and they always fall short. Just know this, it falls short on God's grace. It falls short on the Father's grace here and for each of you. Because the Father speaks up finally and everything changes. Filled with compassion, the Father speaks because he is the real renegade. We think we can't lift our head. We can't look the world in the eye because we're heartbroken. We're hurting. No one's ever going to speak to us again. And the Father does all of that. He looks his son in the eye. He feels for his broken heart and he speaks to him because God will always speak to you no matter where you've been. No matter where you are right now, he will always speak to you. We may not hear it though, because of the guilt we're carrying. Realize that his compassion washes that away. His love for you blows that away, and he has things to tell you. A couple months ago, I had a friend who was in real crisis. And he called me and we talked for a while one night. He called me a couple days later. And absolutely, this could change his life in a very difficult, painful way. We're texting and talking. And he was honest and upfront with me. He's like, I know what you do for a living. I've not gone to church. I don't do that anymore. Haven't had anything to do with God for so long. And he finally said one day, he's like, maybe I do. Maybe I do need to reconnect with my faith. Maybe I need to hear from God again. And I just told him straight up, I said, man, I'm not trying to take advantage of your situation, but you're always welcome to come to the gathering on Sunday. And so that Sunday, he showed up. And I know it's difficult to show up as a visitor here for the first time. Just know that we who invited you, it's really nerve-wracking on us. When I invite somebody to church, when I invite somebody here, I'm like, are they going to hate the music? Are they going to hate me? You're probably thinking it today. You're like, oh my gosh, what are they thinking about these songs? Is Joel going to rap again? What if somebody raises their hands? What's my friend going to think? It's nerve-wracking to invite somebody to church. It's nerve-wracking to sit with you, visitor. It's hard. And I felt that whole service. I'm trying to keep this calm, cool, awesome persona that I have going here. But the whole time I'm like, what is he thinking? Is he going to think we're crazy? Is he ever going to come back? Is anyone going to talk to him? And after the service was over, I went back out into the hallway, and he's out there surrounded by people engaging him, talking to him. And that afternoon, I went on Facebook, and I messaged a couple of them that I'm friends with on Facebook, and I was like, man, thank you for talking to my friend. He really enjoyed today. He really got something. He said he's gonna come back when he can. And I said, a lot of it had to do with you taking time to talk to him. And one of these people that I messaged just sent me a real simple message back. He was like, hey, thanks for letting us know. He goes, but Joel, that's what we do. That's what we do. We want to talk to you. We want to speak to you because God's spoken to us and God has something to say to you. So if you're here visiting for the first time, you've been coming for a while and no one's spoken to you, let me know. We'll go egg their car afterwards. And then we'll talk about how awesome that was. We want to know who you are. We want to know what's going on in your life. We want to know how to pray for you and care for you. We want to know what you think about what's going on here and how you can connect in. We want to speak to you because God has spoken to us. And God always speaks to you, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done. But not only does the Father cut the Son off and finally speak up, and it changes everything because of the compassion he felt. But the Father covers the Son. He covers the Son. Look at the second part of verse 22. The Son has a speech in verse 21, says it out loud. The Father cuts him off because it's the Father's plan that matters. It's the Father's story now. And it says he looks to his servants and he says, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand, shoes on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is found. And they began to celebrate. From where we were in the story last week, this son was not just covered in guilt and shame. He was covered in pig feces because he was living in a pig pen. He was covered in slavery because he had to sell himself away. He was covered in pain and despair and hurt. And now he's walking back home just hoping that maybe his father will show enough mercy to make him a slave in his father's household. Because that's got to be better than nothing, right? He's lost everything. He's lost his power. He's lost his prestige. He's lost his reputation because of his poor choices. He sold everything that he had just so he could survive another day. And the Father sees him, feels compassion, runs to him and speaks again. And when he's talking here, yeah, he's talking to the servants, not directly to the son here. He's talking to the servants. But imagine how important, how life-changing it was for the son to hear what his dad was saying. His dad said, bring him the best robe and put it on him. Not just any robe, the best robe. He's not saying, go get that weird Bed Bath & Beyond bathrobe that your crazy aunt gives you. You know, everybody's giving you gift cards and money. You got that one aunt who gives you a bathrobe. Like, I got one once. Who wears a bathrobe? Just Jack Tripper and Three's Company. What am I going to do with this? But the dad says, no, not the Jack Tripper robe. The best robe. The dad is saying, go to my closet, get my clothes, bring it on him because this is my son. This is not how he dresses. Dress him right. Put it on him. What he's saying to the son and what he's saying to you and I is this: you'll dress like us again because you're home. And he says, put a ring on his finger. What's powerful here is he's not just saying any ring, no cubic zirconia here. The Father's saying put the ring on him. The ring that he's talking about is the family signet ring with their crest. That when correspondence was sent, you took that ring and you dipped it into hot wax and you stamped the letter with that ring. And it showed that this is coming from this family. The power of this family is flowing from here because of that one ring. The dad's saying, put that ring on his hand because this is my son and he's going to have the power that we have. When he speaks, it's like me speaking. When he goes somewhere and people see it, they know that he's from our family, from our home. Put that ring on his finger. What he's saying to him here and what he's saying to all of us is that you'll have power like us again because you're home. He says, put shoes on his feet. Miles and miles and miles the son has walked into another country, blew his money, spent his inheritance, was dead and dying in a pig pen, sold his shoes away just so he could live for another day, and now he's walking back barefoot, and his feet are bruised and cut and soiled as he walks these dirt roads back to his father's home. And now he's trudging through his father's dirt roads and fields just to get home for a chance at maybe being a servant there. And his dad says, no, put shoes on his feet. And what he's saying to the son here, what he's saying to us is this: you'll walk with us again because you're home. Then he says, and go kill the fattened calf. Let's have a feast. Let's celebrate because he's back. My preaching mentor, Dr. Robert Smith Jr., who taught me so much about preaching in seminary, preached on this parable one time, and he got to this point, and he said, this is my favorite part. He said, because he said, kill the fattened calf. What he said there is the father was fattening this calf for this meal, for this specific celebration, not for Easter, not for Christmas, not for Thanksgiving, not for Super Bowl Sunday, not for the series finale of The Bachelorette. He's saying, no, that calf right there is for when my son comes home. When we celebrate that he is back, that's when we get to kill that fattened calf. And he says, go kill that calf. And my son, he sits at the family table. He's not at the kids' table anymore. He's not at the servants' table in their quarters. He's at my table celebrating. What he's saying to him here and to all of us here today is, you'll dine with us again because you're home at the family table. And then in verse 24, he says, this is my son. The parable can end there and it would be perfect. This is not a servant. This is not a vagabond. This is my son. He was dead, but now he's alive. He was lost, but now he's found. Notice the placement there. The son never physically died, did he? He died emotionally, yeah, financially, spiritually, mentally, yes. But he never physically died. But the father says he was dead, now he's alive. He was lost, now he's found. You'd think that should be reversed, right? Jesus says everything for a specific reason in a specific way. And Luke was a doctor by trade. That's why it's my favorite book in the Bible, because he puts details in the way that he heard Jesus and made sure that it got to paper so we could read it and be encouraged by it is specific. It's technical. It's for a reason. The father said, this is my son. He was dead. He was dead, but now he's alive. When we rebel and run from him, it's like we're dead. But when we turn back home, we're alive. We're lost, but now we're found. It shows something incredible here about the Father, about God. It shows a father who had been grieving over the death of his son, but he's not anymore. He's celebrating it. This is my son, is what he says. This is my son. He's home. He's dressed like us. He's walking with us. He has the power that we have. And now we're celebrating because our home is complete. Our family is complete. This is my son, my renegade son. And our family is complete. It shows something incredible that the Father will always spend on you. Extravagantly spend on you. No matter where you've been, no matter how much you've rebelled, he wants to spend extravagantly, gracefully, mercifully, lovingly upon you. We're missing the celebration because we keep walking our own path. Turn, come home, feel his compassion, hear his words. Let him cover you with his goodness and grace. He spends extravagantly upon you. And the way that he did it most was through his son, Jesus Christ, who came and lived and died for you and then rose again for you. He gave his only son so he could show his compassion for you and for me, for us. What this means for us as a church is we're going to spend on you. If you're a guest or been with us just for a short time, know that we don't have much, but everything we do, we pour into making environments that allow you to connect with God and with others. We don't have a huge budget. We don't spend on a zillion different things because we want to make the times that we get together significant and special because you are significant and special to God. And you're significant and special to us. So we're going to spend on you in every way that we can. It may not be much, but no, we're putting as much behind it as we can to make this a significant opportunity for you to know God and hear of his love and compassion for you. A few years ago when we were living in Chattanooga, my youngest son wasn't born yet. We just had our two kids, Rachel and Luke, and a Target opened in Chattanooga. So it was means for great celebration. So Target had finally come and all was right with the world. And the Target in our town there in Chattanooga, they put those huge, red stone balls in front. I don't know if they have them around here, but there, I guess they did it for protection because people were so excited. They weren't going to park. They were going to drive as fast as they could through the glass door so they could get to that dollar aisle in the front as quickly as possible. So they put these big red stones, and we're walking up, and Rachel, she was 4 or 5 times. She goes, "Oh, I want to be on top of that." Big stone ball. So we kind of helped her up, and she was like on it like this, like her belly was on top, and she slid down. She goes, "No, help me get on top." She wanted to stand on top of that rock. So we put her up on her behind. She all unbalanced and slid off. And then Luke, was 3. He was like, "I want to get up there." And so we put Luke up there, and he slid off. We tried to sit him up. They both wanted to stand on there, but they couldn't. They didn't have the balance for it. And then Rachel said, "Dad, you do it." I have about as much balance and coordination as a 3-year-old. It's like, this isn't going to be pretty. But she challenged me. She expected me to do it. Other people started to gather around and be like, "Let's see if Fatty can get up on that rock." So I slide up, get one foot under me, get another foot up me, and I slowly stand up on that rock, and I'm like, "Yes, I haven't died yet." And Rachel went, "Yes, Dad, I knew that you could do it." You may be in such pain and hurt and crisis today that you don't think anybody, God especially, could do anything about it. Know that he can. Know that he longs to, that he wants to, that he's hurting in your hurt, that he feels compassion to where you are. Dad can do it. Turn back to him, turn back to home, and know that he wants to bring you in because our family is not complete without you. We've run for far too long. We've rebelled and been renegades in a way that doesn't work for us, and we're hurting, we're in pain. Know that Dad can do it. He can do far more for your life than you can imagine, far more than you'll ever be able to do. Turn back to him because Dad can do it for you, wherever you are, whatever you're feeling. Whatever's happening in your life, Dad can do it. Turn back to him. Return home. Feel his compassion. Hear his words and allow him to extravagantly pour grace over your life. Will you pray with me? Father, I call you that because that's who you are. It's what you are to me and to so many here. Thank you for the love that you show us. We don't deserve it. We don't deserve it, but it's there for every single one of us. Renegades who rebelled for far too long against your home, run from your kingdom, and you graciously brought us back in, embracing us, running to us. And today, God, there are many outside those walls who feel that no one could ever love them. No one could ever care about them. No one could ever do anything for the state they're in. Help them turn to home today and let them see that you're running to them, filled with compassion, ready with words, not of reprimand, but of love and mercy, ready to show them the great expense of your Son that died for them and for their sins so they could call you Father. May today be that day they turn to home, and may their life never be the same. Those under my voice who feel that, God, draw them back now. Bring them home now. Change their future, their destiny, their eternity now, because you are their Father, and you love each of us and want us to be children in your home, in your family, in your kingdom. May it be so now, God, through the love and grace that you've shown us and through the power and might that you have to change lives, even the hardest cases, even the most rebellious of rebels. May it be so now for your name, for your power, for your kingdom forevermore. Amen and amen. Thank you guys for being here today. Getting a little tacky up there, so I need a drink. Thank you for joining us today. I want to do two quick invitations before I let you go. One is this: if you're visiting today, you haven't been here before, you're a guest. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. But Paul and I were talking this week, and sometimes you're able to slip through our grasp, and we want to know who you are. I want to meet you. It's not so we can come, to your house this afternoon. If you want to invite me, you have the NFL Sunday ticket. That'd be awesome. We're not going to come to your house this week on a visitation night. We may drive really slowly by your house and just stare at you for a while. But we really just want to meet you. So know this: when I'm done here, I stand down here for a reason. Come and introduce yourself to me. All right? If you brought a visitor or brought a friend, a family member, a loved one, bring them to introduce us. I'd love to just know who's here, how I can pray for you. We want to know who you are. Paula is going to be right outside by this concession stand. It's that concession stand that's to the side here that people always come into the movie theater and go, why isn't that concession stand open? Why is that there? Well, it's there because Paula stands outside of it. It's Paula's concession stand. She's going to be down there. She'd love to meet you down there. People may be talking to us. Just know they always talk to us. And we want to talk to you, not them. So come and introduce yourself to us. We want to love to meet you, love to know who you are, get your name, and for you to know us. And so I'll be here. Paul will be down there. Please let us know. The other thing, I'll invite you back for next week, our last Sunday in this series, Renegades. And Paula is going to do the final message in that. She's going to be speaking next week. The original Renegade is going to come and bring that home. And she's going to talk about that celebration. We just barely got to the end where they started to celebrate. She's going to talk about what that means for you individually and what that means for us as a church. It's going to be a really cool Sunday. I'll be off defending freedom in the wilds of Columbia, Tennessee. So I'll be with the Army next week. Paula's going to speak, but it's not by design. I'm going to be gone, so you do it. I wanted Paula to be a part of this series because Renegades flowed out of her and her husband's heart and flows out of so many of your hearts that I thought it made sense to do a series on who we are as Renegades and have Paula, who's led the Renegades for so long. So she's going to bring that final message. Join us online. Join us here as we wrap the series up. You guys got it? Got it. Good. I'm going to let you go. Have a great day. Bye.